Hello and welcome to my evaluation for my first project. The task we were set was to plan and create an opening title sequence for a genre of our choosing. I chose to do an action drama with a hint of mystery. My opening title sequence is based on an army veteran who has had his pension taken away by the government, and because of this he becomes a severe alcoholic. This causes him to lose his relationship with his wife and daughter. With nothing else to lose, he attempts to rob a bank. To do this, we had to analyse other opening title sequences, and we had to do relevant research for our projects. We also had to write down our idea generation, our planning, as well as some extra research for techniques we wanted to experiment with. This all went on our Wix sites. The project lasted approximately 6 weeks, and this was a solo project. For the analysis section, we had to analyse 5 different opening title sequences. The opening title sequences I chose were Deep State, Reservoir Dogs, The Beach, Heat, and Warrior. Each of these opening title sequences helped me in different ways. For example, one of the most memorable aspects of the Deep State opening title sequence was its music. It was extremely powerful and it really drew the viewer's attention to what's happening on the screen. This is something I really wanted to incorporate in my own opening title sequence, which I think I did really well with my song choice of Nights in White Satin. It really helped set the tone and create a good pace for my opening title sequence. The next opening title sequence I analysed was Reservoir Dogs. I chose this because it was extremely different from my last one. I wanted to get a variety of different types of opening title sequences. Along with Deep State, this one really helped me with my idea generation and planning when it came to my music. Both had extremely good songs and it really made me think about what song I could have, and I ended up going with Nights in White Satin. After that, I analysed The Beach. This one really helped me with one of my camera shots that I used multiple times in my opening title sequence, which was a panning shot. This is a shot that I used in my experimentation, and it helped me when I ran into problems while I was shooting. For example, when I took the drone out, I planned to have multiple shots using it, and I ran into technical difficulties. I couldn't calibrate the gimbal, couldn't get any steady footage, so I had to improvise. This is something I didn't foresee in my planning. The last 2 opening title sequences that I analysed were Heat and Warrior. These 2 were both quite relatable to my own project because they were both dramas. These 2 opening title sequences helped me to figure out how long I wanted to make my own title sequence. Heat was around 3 minutes and Warrior was around 5 minutes, and my own opening title sequence ended up being roughly 4 minutes and 40 seconds. This helped me to plan the pace of my opening title sequence. These 2 were also extremely helpful later on in my project. When I got to my planning and idea generation, I came back and watched these again, and it really helped me with a few of my shots that I chose to use. For example, in Heat there's a shot where the camera's really low to the actor's feet and it follows his footsteps for a bit, and I used that in my own opening title sequence when my character steps out of his car. I also got the idea of filming my character while he was driving from Warrior, whereas in Warrior the opening title sequence follows one of the characters on his journey home, and that was a big influence on how I filmed my character's journey back to his house. Overall, I think my analysis stage was good. It helped me form some good ideas and carry them over into later stages of my project. However, I definitely think there are things that I could improve on, such as instead of having to come back and re-watch a lot of my analysis videos, I should go more in depth on a lot of the camera angles and camera shots instead of just the music and narrative of the opening title sequence. So next time I do analysis for another project, I'm going to make sure that I go more in depth and really get more detail into every aspect of what I'm analysing. The next section I'm going to talk about is my research. This section includes a mise-en-scene workshop reflection. This was extremely helpful as it helped me understand all that was included in setting up a scene. This was new information for me. It helped prepare me for planning my shooting days, as I didn't know before how long it would take to set everything up. However, there's still much more that I need to learn, and that comes with experience, such as when things go wrong when you're filming, how to overcome and deal with that. This is something I faced myself in this project, and I will learn from what happened. Next, we looked at different research methods, such as primary and secondary, and all the different ways to carry out both those different types of research. We also looked into the validity of each method, and then we carried out a critical report on primary and secondary research, comparing both the difficulties in collecting data and understanding which research methods are best suited for certain situations. This was extremely helpful because we had to carry out a lot of research for this project. Understanding how to research and what research types to use for different situations was extremely useful. I think my critical report on research was very good, and it was extremely useful in helping me understand what the best way to research certain topics within my research section. The next part of my research was looking into two graphic designers, Saul Bass and Carl Cooper. These are two extremely talented opening title sequence creators. My research on Saul Bass was from an interview that I watched on YouTube where he described his thoughts behind the opening title sequences that he has created. This gave me a good insight into what I should be thinking about when creating my opening title sequence, and helped me when it came to my planning stage. Next, I did research on Carl Cooper. I researched into his career and had a look at a collection of his famous title sequences that he had created, such as Iron Man 3, Spider-Man 3, American Horror Story, The Walking Dead Season 1 and 2, and probably his most famous opening title sequence from the film Seven. Carl Cooper's opening title sequences are very special effects oriented. Since this is my first time using Premiere Pro, this wasn't a massive help to me because I'm simply just not able to do a lot of the special effects that are in his opening title sequences, so I couldn't draw much inspiration from them. But luckily I did more research into Carl Cooper, and I found a video on YouTube of him in an interview discussing how to be creative and generate ideas when you're struggling, and that was a big help to me because that was all about just generating ideas and being creative. So that helped when it came to my storyboard and planning my opening title sequence. Next was my secondary research stage. For this I started off looking into camera techniques, and I found a video called Directing Camera Movement. Now this really helped me get my brain thinking about different camera movements and what would look good, and it also introduced me to a new camera technique called rack focus, which I had never heard of before, and I really liked it and knew that I was going to use it immediately, so I directed a lot of my secondary research to looking into how to do rack focus and when best to use it. This was really good because I did end up using rack focus in my experimentation, practicing with it, and I ended up getting, in my opinion, pretty decent at it, good enough to put in my opening title sequence, and I did put it in, and I'm really happy with the outcome. I think it looks really good and I'm really pleased with it. The next part of my secondary research was about tone, and this was all about changing the brightness of a scene to alter how people feel, like emotionally. To start with, this was really good. It was a good bit of information and it was interesting, but I didn't use it because when I got in and I actually started making my opening title sequence, I didn't research how to set up lighting, so I didn't know how to do it, so I ended up not using it, and I ended up just using natural lighting. In the future, if I research something and don't know how to do it, I need to dive deeper into that research and really figure out how to do it so that I can use it, instead of it just being irrelevant to my project. Because knowing how to set up lighting would have been a massive help, and it would have definitely improved my final product. The last two topics in my secondary research were drone camera techniques and drone laws, and also flashback effects in Premiere. Sadly, I didn't get to use either of these because of issues that I had that I wasn't expecting. When I decided to take the drone out and film my shots that I had planned, I couldn't get the drone to work. The gimbal wasn't working. It kept moving, and I couldn't get it to steady. So I just had to leave the drone shots out because of time issues that I had, because I didn't plan to have these issues. So my timescale wasn't lenient enough for me to figure out how to get around this problem and do it another day. I just didn't have the time. It was a pretty similar issue with the flashback section of my opening title sequence. I had planned to have my uncle send me a small section of footage from Australia for a happy flashback memory scene. However, for some reason it wouldn't send. We tried a few times and it just wouldn't send. And again, because of the time scale that I'd left myself to film and edit and do this evaluation, I just didn't have the time to figure out another way to get that footage. I then had to replan and think of another way to get my flashback scene into my opening title sequence, because I did want to add it, and I had the idea of using images as like frozen memories, but after my editing skills aren't great, and after using the pictures into my opening title sequence, I watched it back and it really didn't look good, so I took them out and decided to have my opening title sequence without the flashbacks, because it looked better without them in the end. Now I'm going to talk about my primary research that I did. This was a very helpful stage of my project, because at the time I knew from my analysis that I wanted to add a really strong song in my opening title sequence, and I was torn between three options, which were Nights in White Satin, The Man Who Sold the World by Nirvana, and Hurt by Johnny Cash. Now, after asking which song the average viewer would rather hear in a film, Nights in White Satin was a clear winner, so that really made my decision a lot easier. The next question I asked was about the length of an opening title sequence. Now, my opening title sequence is 4 minutes and 40 seconds, roughly, and my results on this question actually suggest that people would prefer him to be between 1 to 2 minutes or 2 to 3 minutes. However, because my opening title sequence is based on a drama and it's got a slower song and it's got a slower tempo to it, I think it works better being longer because it builds up more, and it hasn't got as fast a pace as, say, an action film, but should usually go with the research, but I felt it was better this way. My next question was asking the average watcher whether they liked dramas or not. And this was a big question considering my whole thing was based on a drama. Luckily for me, most people said that they did like dramas. The rest of my questions were directed towards what kind of director's styles people preferred and whether there should be dialogue in title sequences, or even if there needs to be characters in title sequences, just to help me figure out what I was going to do with my opening title sequence and help me plan it. As a whole, my primary research was extremely useful and I'm really happy with it. However, I would like to have asked more questions and to a bigger variety of people to get more accurate and well-rounded results. I will definitely do this in my next project. Overall, I'm really happy with my research. I think part of my research was let down due to unforeseen circumstances and my planning and how little time I left to deal with issues that arose. And this is definitely something that I'm going to work on in my next project. The next stage I'm going to talk about is planning. The first thing I did when it came to planning was look at the potential difficulties in this project. Throughout this evaluation, I have referenced the fact that I had a fair few difficulties filming and getting footage. So I think it'd be safe to say I could have done this better. I did write a lot of things that I could have had issues with. It just happens that two things that really caused me problems aren't on this list, so I didn't do this part of my planning correctly, and it is something that I will work on in my next one. Next is idea generation. To start off with the idea generation, I chose my genre, which was action drama. I also chose to incorporate a little bit of mystery after my analysis and seeing some of the opening title sequences that had hints of mystery in them. I really liked them and I wanted to involve that in my own project. Then I had to come up with ideas to base my opening title sequence around, like what it was going to be. I knew it was going to be a drama, so I had to get ideas and think of how I was going to make it interesting, and I got ideas from a variety of different things, from my analysis to my research to just looking out the window while I'm driving, all different things. One of my main focuses was to add the rack focus that I saw in my secondary research, and as I've said earlier, that went really well and I did end up using it. Now, because of some of the problems that I had with the filming and some of the footage that I was hoping to get, my idea generation and my storyboard isn't 100% like what my final product is. The story's still the same, it's just there's a few shots that I've changed because of what happened and I couldn't do certain things that I wanted to do. But the story is still the same, just told in slightly different shots. I think my idea generation was good. I think my planning for problems and issues has had a domino effect throughout my thing, changing little bits here and there. I just need to learn from the mistakes that I made here and make sure I don't repeat them in future projects. The issues I had also affected my experimentation, since I couldn't use the drone for my final product. That shot isn't in there, but two of my experimented shots are in there, which are two shots I spoke about, which is the rack focus and the panning shot. Also, to help me with my rack focus shot, I looked into depth of field to get a little bit of extra information into how to get the right amount of blurriness either way, and that went really well. Also, as part of our experimentation, we did a music video rhythmic editing, and we also practiced making titles. These two parts of my project were possibly the most helpful out of all of them. Since this is my first time ever using Premiere, they really helped me to navigate around and learn a little bit about how to make edits and put shots together. And before doing the titles, I had no idea how to do titles or how to edit them and make them look good. So both of these two parts of my experimentation were absolutely vital, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Moving on from this, I would like to improve on my visual effects, because this is something that I struggled with in my main project. It's definitely something that I need to work on. Now I'm going to talk about my final outcome. This is the first video I've ever made, and I really couldn't be happier with how it's turned out. Although I had a few complications along the way, as I've spoke about, I think my camera work is really nice in this project. I think my titles look really good, and I really like my choice of music in this opening title sequence. I feel it sets the tone well, and from watching it, you know what kind of film it's going to be, but you don't know too much of the story. Things I would like to improve on in the future are my editing skills as a whole, just so I can make my footage look that extra bit better. I'd like to learn more about the camera settings, such as aperture, ISO and shutter speed, and how they affect the way that the video looks. That is my evaluation for my opening title sequence, The Struggle. Thank you for listening.